Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? Our next story comes from Jeannie, whose daughter has a very interesting friend. Jeannie and her daughter, Azura, used to live in Brazil with the rest of their extended family. Azura was a bright little girl who was always happy and energetic and had no trouble making friends. But when she turned 7, something changed. She was no longer interested in playing with her friends and became cold and distant to everyone, including her mother. Azura would curl up in her bedroom alone, and Jeannie would overhear her talking to herself for hours. Jeannie thought Azura might be going through a phase and invented an imaginary friend for herself. But Azura's grandmother thought otherwise. That's because one night, Azura's grandmother walked by the bedroom where Azura was talking to herself. She stopped in the doorway and looked into the room and screamed. Azura turned and hissed at her grandma like a rabid animal and crouched on all fours, growling deeply. Her grandmother ran out of the room and locked the door from the outside. "Jeannie, you have to call the priest now. There is a demon in this house." Jeannie is not a religious woman. She thought her mother was being a little dramatic, but nevertheless, she called a priest to come over to the house. He arrived the next morning and the grandmother explained what she saw. There was a demon with big bat wings and cloven hooves. Its skin was dark and scaly and its hands had giant talons. Jeannie just snickered at this description. The grandmother unlocked the door and there was Azura crying hysterically. "Don't go! Don't go, please don't go! No, please don't go! Don't go! Please don't go!" The moment he saw this, the priest dropped his Bible and rosary and closed the door. "That's no demon. That's a mancha chico." "A what?" "It is a creature that is born from a demon and cursed without love. They seek out mortals to love them and attach themselves to those who show them kindness." Jeannie laughed. This was absolutely ridiculous. When they fall in love with a human, they truly care for them and keep them safe, but for a price. In return for their devotion, the Mancha Chico will gain possession of the human soul in the afterlife. We have to save her. The priest re-entered the bedroom and said a prayer. When he came out of the room, Jeannie saw Azura sleeping peacefully in her bed. A few days later, Jeannie was about to run some errands and Azura stopped her. "Don't leave." "But sweetie, I need to buy us some." "Please." Jeannie was a little freaked out by how sincere her daughter was, so she stayed home. Later that day, when they were watching the news, they learned that there was an active shooter at the nearby mall, the mall that Jeannie was going to go to. "Why did you make me stay home?"
Cheliso told me to tell you. He doesn't want me to be sad, so he will help me keep you safe.
There were multiple instances like this when Azura would tell her mother to avoid a certain area, only to later discover that it could have saved her life. And Jeannie wasn't the only one who was experiencing good luck. Azura's school bullies had stopped picking on her and began apologizing to her and giving her gifts. Azura was hit by a car on the sidewalk and flown into a gutter, but walked away without a scratch. Azura's little sister was diagnosed with a terrible skin disease, only to have it completely healed a few weeks later. To Jeannie, it was all just good luck. But according to Azura, this was all because of Cheliso, her demon. Years had gone by and Azura was now 15 years old. Jeannie found it a little odd that her daughter had never talked about any school crushes or shown any interest in dating, so she decided to talk to her daughter. "You know, when I was your age, I couldn't stop talking about boys. Is there anyone you like at your school? You can tell me." "I have Cheliso. He says I'm his one and only, and it'd be wrong to leave him when he's been so good to me. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama?" Jeannie did not like that response. She thought that her daughter had finally grown out of this ridiculous phase and she couldn't stand these lies anymore. "Enough, Azura, enough with Cheliso. He isn't real. I don't ever want to hear about Cheliso again. You understand?" Jeannie stormed out of the room, leaving Azura in tears. After she had cooled down, Jeannie decided to apologize to her daughter. She entered her bedroom and froze. there was Azura, curled up on her bed, but in the lap of a giant demon. He looked just as Azura's grandmother had described years ago. Jeannie couldn't believe what she saw. But there he was. Cheliso was real. Azura is now 22 years old and only occasionally mentions Cheliso. And Jeannie will remind her that Cheliso plans to take her soul in the afterlife. And you're okay with that? Of course. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama? A very special thank you to Jeannie, Azura, and Cheliso, who, according to Azura,